From the outside, it always looked like Darcey and Stacey were living parallel lives. Twin sisters. Same face. Same dreams. Same desire for love that felt real, permanent, and undeniable. But beneath the matching appearances and shared history, their emotional paths slowly drifted apart in ways that would eventually become impossible to ignore. The moment Stacey's husband found peace wasn't loud. It didn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It showed up quietly, in consistency, in calm conversations, in decisions made without hesitation. And that quiet peace stood in sharp contrast to the storm Darcey seemed trapped inside. Darcey's relationships were never short on passion. They were intense, emotional, and full of big promises. But they were also unstable. Each new love story began with hope and ended with confusion. Arguments replaced reassurance. Doubt replaced certainty. And over time, the cycle became painfully familiar, not just to viewers, but to Darcey herself. Meanwhile, Stacey's husband didn't compete for attention. He didn't thrive on chaos. He didn't need constant validation to feel secure. Instead, he showed up. Over and over again. When things got uncomfortable, he didn't run. When problems surfaced, he didn't escalate. He stayed steady. And that steadiness slowly reshaped Stacey's world. What made this difference so difficult wasn't jealousy. It was comparison. Watching Stacey build a life rooted in emotional safety forced Darcey to confront something she had avoided for years. The instability in her relationships wasn't random. It followed her. Darcey had always believed love was something you fought for. Something you proved. Something that required sacrifice and endurance. The harder it was, the more real it felt. But Stacey's husband challenged that belief without ever saying a word. His calm presence suggested a different truth, that love doesn't have to hurt to matter. As Stacey grew more grounded, Darcey felt more unsteady. Not because she wanted Stacey's marriage, but because she wanted the peace that came with it. The kind of peace that doesn't ask you to perform. The kind that doesn't leave you questioning your worth after every disagreement. Darcey tried to stay optimistic. She always did. Each new relationship felt like a fresh start, a chance to finally get it right. But underneath the excitement lived anxiety, the fear of being abandoned, misunderstood, or left behind. And that fear often shaped her choices more than love ever did. The contrast between the sisters became undeniable. Stacey's life felt settled. Darcey's felt suspended, always waiting for clarity that never fully arrived. And while no one said it out loud, the difference was felt in every shared moment. This wasn't the beginning of a rivalry. It was the beginning of a realization. One sister had found peace through stability. The other was still chasing intensity, mistaking it for connection. And as time went on, that difference would force Darcey to face a truth she could no longer ignore. Peace isn't something you wait for someone else to give you. It's something you choose. For years, Darcey insisted she wanted the same things Stacey had: commitment, loyalty, and a partner who wouldn't walk away. But when stability actually appeared in front of her, it never held her attention for long. Calm felt unfamiliar. Predictability felt empty. And peace, strangely, felt boring. Stacey didn't experience stability as dull. She experienced it as relief. That difference wasn't accidental. It came from how each sister learned to interpret love. Darcey grew comfortable in emotional highs and lows. Intensity became proof that something mattered. If there were tears, arguments, or dramatic reunions, it meant feelings were real. Stability, on the other hand, didn't activate her nervous system the same way, and because of that, it felt suspicious. Stacey's husband didn't create chaos to prove he cared. He didn't disappear only to return with grand apologies. He didn't confuse emotion with effort. He showed consistency, something Stacey recognized as safety, not boredom. Darcey, however, struggled in that space. When relationships were calm, her mind filled the silence with doubt. She questioned whether the connection was deep enough. She worried about losing excitement. And without realizing it, she gravitated back toward partners who kept her emotionally on edge. This pattern didn't mean Darcey wanted pain. It meant pain felt familiar. Emotional unpredictability mirrored old wounds she never fully healed. Being needed, chasing reassurance, and proving her worth gave her a sense of purpose, even if it drained her. Stacey's approach was different. She didn't chase intensity. She valued presence. When her husband showed up consistently, she didn't question it. She accepted it. And that acceptance allowed the relationship to grow without constant testing. Watching this unfold was quietly devastating for Darcey. Not because Stacey was happier, but because Stacey's happiness didn't require struggle. It exposed a painful contrast Darcey couldn't explain away anymore. Every time Darcey's relationships hit another emotional crisis, the difference became clearer. Stacey's life wasn't perfect, but it was grounded. Darcey's was dramatic, passionate, and exhausting. The truth Darcey didn't want to admit was simple but heavy. Stability didn't feel safe to her yet. It felt unfamiliar. And until that changed, no relationship could truly settle. Darcey didn't fear commitment the way people often assumed. She feared something far more unsettling, being left without a fight. In her past relationships, abandonment was loud. It came with arguments, breakups, and emotional explosions. Painful as they were, those moments at least gave her something concrete to hold on to. A reason. A villain. A story where she could say, "I tried." But Stacey's husband represented a different kind of reality. A quiet love. A steady presence. Someone who didn't threaten to leave when things got difficult and didn't need chaos to feel connected. For Darcey, that kind of love was terrifying. Because quiet love doesn't give warnings. It doesn't announce itself loudly. And if it disappears, it does so silently. To Darcey, that silence felt dangerous. It left no emotional evidence. No dramatic explanation. Just absence. So without realizing it, Darcey gravitated toward men who made their uncertainty obvious. Men whose emotional instability matched her internal fear. As long as love was dramatic, she could prepare herself for loss. As long as there were highs and lows, she felt in control. Stacey didn't need that control. Her husband's consistency didn't threaten her sense of self, it reinforced it. When he chose her, he did so without hesitation. And that lack of doubt created safety, not anxiety. Darcey watched this dynamic unfold from the outside. She noticed how Stacey didn't overanalyze text, didn't question tone, didn't seek constant reassurance. Stacey trusted the connection because the connection earned trust. Darcey, on the other hand, was always bracing herself, waiting for the shift, looking for signs that the ground was about to fall away beneath her. This fear wasn't about Stacey's husband being better than Darcey's partners. It was about how Darcey interpreted love itself. In her world, love had always been something you fought for, chased, and proved, never something that simply stayed. And until Darcey learned how to sit with quiet reassurance without feeling abandoned by it, stability would always feel fragile in her hands. From the outside, Stacey's marriage looked calm, predictable, almost boring. And for Darcey, that was the problem. Darcey had spent years equating love with intensity. If it wasn't passionate, emotional, or dramatic, she questioned its authenticity. In her experience, love showed up as fireworks, loud beginnings, explosive arguments, tearful reconciliations. Chaos felt like chemistry. So when she observed Stacey's husband moving through life with emotional steadiness, Darcey didn't immediately see peace. She saw absence, a lack of urgency, a lack of pursuit. What she didn't understand yet was that peace only feels boring when your nervous system is addicted to instability. Stacey's husband didn't need to prove his love repeatedly. He didn't escalate conflicts to feel connected. He didn't withdraw to regain control. His emotional availability was consistent, not conditional. And that consistency slowly rewired Stacey's expectations of love. Darcey, meanwhile, stayed trapped in cycles where emotional highs were followed by crushing lows. Each new relationship promised intensity. Each ending left her drained, confused, and questioning her worth. The contrast became impossible to ignore. Stacey's marriage allowed her to grow. Darcey's relationships demanded survival. One night, Darcey admitted something she had never said out loud. She didn't know how to exist in a relationship that didn't require constant effort. Calm felt unfamiliar. Silence felt suspicious. Stability felt undeserved. And that realization hit hard. Because it meant the problem wasn't that Darcey couldn't find love, it was that she couldn't recognize it when it didn't hurt. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't chase. It doesn't test you. And for someone who learned love through emotional struggle, peace feels empty at first. Until you understand that it's not absence, it's safety. Darcey hadn't learned how to rest in safety yet. And until she did, stability would always feel like something that belonged to someone else. Stacey never sat Darcey down and said, "My life is better than yours." She didn't need to. Her marriage spoke in ways words never could. Stacey's husband showed up the same way every day. Not perfectly, but predictably. He didn't disappear during conflict. He didn't need space to punish. He didn't make love conditional on behavior. And without realizing it, Stacey began to mirror that same emotional regulation. That's when Darcey felt the shift most painfully. Because every time Darcey entered a new relationship, she still hoped intensity would turn into stability, while Stacey was already living inside it. Darcey noticed the difference in the smallest moments. How Stacey didn't over-explain herself anymore. How she didn't spiral after disagreements. How she didn't need constant reassurance to feel secure. Meanwhile, Darcey was still reading text messages too closely. Still overanalyzing tone. Still negotiating her needs instead of stating them. And suddenly, comparison wasn't optional, it was unavoidable. Stacey's peace became a mirror reflecting Darcey's chaos. Not because Darcey was weaker, but because she was still emotionally unprotected. Stacey's husband didn't affix her. He created an environment where healing could happen naturally. Safety became the foundation, not the reward. Darcey's partners, on the other hand, often required her to earn stability through emotional labor. Love felt like a test she had to pass repeatedly. And this is where resentment quietly entered. Not toward Stacey, but toward herself. Darcey began questioning her instincts. Why did she chase people who felt unavailable? Why did uncertainty feel exciting while consistency felt dull? Why did she keep confusing emotional hunger with connection? The answer wasn't simple. But it was honest. Darcey had learned to associate love with emotional unpredictability. And until that association changed, stability would always feel foreign. Watching Stacey live a different reality forced Darcey to confront a painful truth. She wasn't unlucky, she was repeating what felt familiar. And familiarity, when it's rooted in chaos, becomes a trap. There comes a moment when patterns stop feeling like coincidence and start feeling like confession. For Darcey, that moment didn't arrive during a breakup. It arrived while watching Stacey live peacefully inside a marriage that didn't require constant emotional survival. Darcey had always told herself she was strong because she endured. But endurance isn't strength when it's draining you. Every unstable relationship left behind emotional residue. Every promise that fell apart chipped away at her trust, not just in men, but in herself. And suddenly, Darcey realized something devastating. She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of being alone with the truth. The truth that she kept choosing emotionally unavailable partners. The truth that chaos felt familiar. The truth that calm felt undeserved. Stacey's husband didn't raise his voice to be heard. He didn't disappear to maintain control. He didn't love in extremes. And that quiet consistency exposed just how loud Darcey's inner world had become. Darcey's breakdown wasn't dramatic at first. It came as fatigue, emotional exhaustion, decision paralysis, a numbness where hope used to live. She stopped fantasizing about forever, stopped believing the next relationship would be different, stopped trusting her instincts. And that loss of self-trust hurt more than any breakup ever had. Darcey finally admitted something she had avoided for years. Love had become a way for her to seek validation, not partnership. She didn't want to be completed, she wanted to be chosen. And that realization shattered her. Because being chosen by someone unstable always meant abandoning herself in the process. Stacey didn't take Darcey's place. She didn't win a competition. She simply stopped bleeding emotionally, while Darcey was still trying to survive love instead of feel safe inside it. This was Darcey's true breaking point. Not jealousy. Not comparison. But clarity. For years, Darcey believed heartbreak was the worst pain imaginable. She was wrong. The real terror came when she realized she had to stop chasing love altogether. Choosing herself didn't arrive with confidence or empowerment. It arrived with silence. No late-night texts. No emotional highs. No chaos to distract her from herself. And that emptiness felt unbearable. Darcey had built her identity around being desired, pursued, wanted. Romantic intensity wasn't just love, it was proof that she mattered. So stepping away from unstable relationships felt like erasing the only version of herself she understood. Meanwhile, Stacey's husband continued showing up in quiet, consistent ways. Not performative. Not dramatic. Just present. And that presence highlighted something Darcey had never truly experienced: emotional safety. Safety didn't feel exciting to Darcey. It felt unfamiliar. And unfamiliar felt threatening. Darcey began confronting patterns she had avoided for decades. Why did she mistake anxiety for passion? Why did she equate distance with desire? Why did she feel most alive when love felt uncertain? The answers weren't flattering, but they were freeing. She realized she wasn't drawn to unstable men because she was broken. She was drawn to them because unpredictability mirrored her internal world. And healing meant choosing something calmer, even if it felt uncomfortable at first. Darcey mourned the fantasy of love she had carried her entire life. The idea that intensity meant depth. That sacrifice proved devotion. That suffering was romantic. Letting go of those beliefs felt like grief. But grief made room for truth. Stacey's marriage no longer felt like a comparison. It became evidence that love could exist without chaos. Darcey wasn't healed yet, but she had stopped running. And for the first time, she wasn't chasing someone else's approval. She was learning to sit with herself, without abandoning herself. Darcey didn't fail at love. She failed herself by believing love had to hurt to be real. That realization didn't come with relief. It came with grief. Grief for the years spent proving her worth to people who couldn't protect it. Grief for the boundaries she ignored. Grief for the peace she postponed in the name of passion. Stacey's husband didn't rescue Stacey. He simply met her where she already was. And that truth changed everything. Because Darcey finally understood that love isn't something you earn through endurance, it's something you allow once you believe you deserve safety. Her relationship stayed unstable not because she was unlovable, but because stability required a level of self-trust she hadn't developed yet. Stacey's peace wasn't a judgment. It was an invitation. An invitation to stop chasing emotional highs. To stop negotiating her needs. To stop confusing attachment with connection. Darcey didn't suddenly find the one. She found something far more important. Self-alignment. And in that alignment, comparison lost its power. Darcey wasn't behind. She wasn't broken. She wasn't failing. She was finally becoming honest. Honest about what love should feel like. Honest about what she was willing to accept. Honest about what she deserved. This wasn't the end of her love story. It was the end of survival mode love. And the beginning of something quieter. Healthier. Real. Because the greatest stability Darcey ever needed was never in someone else's arms, it was within herself.